The story begins in a mysterious lab, where a scientist injects a strange chemical into an egg. Surprisingly, another egg begins to grow inside it, hinting at something unusual and unnatural. The scene quickly shifts to Hollywood, where a glamorous actress named Elizabeth Sparkle is being celebrated. Elizabeth, a well-known star who has won an Academy Award, is being honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She became a household name through her popular aerobics TV show, which earned her a loyal fan base and respect over the years. At first, crowds gather around her, taking selfies and admiring her. However, as time passes, Elizabeth's fame begins to fade. The public starts to lose interest, moving on to newer stars and trends. We then see Elizabeth on set, filming another episode of her aerobics show. Today happens to be her 50th birthday, and while her co-workers wish her well, Elizabeth is increasingly aware of the passing of time. After the shoot, Elizabeth heads to the restroom, but due to maintenance in the women's restroom, she ends up using the men's room. While inside, she overhears a conversation between Harvey, the producer of her show, and someone on the phone. Harvey mentions that he's looking for a younger woman to take over the show, implying that Elizabeth's days as the face of the program are numbered. Hearing this devastates Elizabeth. She confronts Harvey to confirm what she heard, but he simply explains that they need to keep the show fresh and give the audience what they want, which leaves her heartbroken. On her way home, Elizabeth's sadness deepens as she notices her picture being removed from billboards. Lost in her thoughts, she gets into a minor car accident, but luckily she doesn't suffer any major injuries. At the hospital, the doctor reassures her that she's physically fine and clears her to go home. However, emotionally, Elizabeth is far from fine. Overwhelmed by the thought of losing her career and the life she's known, she breaks down in tears. A nurse with a strange mark on her hand enters the room and starts checking Elizabeth's spine, making her feel uneasy. After the checkup, the nurse coldly hands her back her clothes and asks her to leave the hospital. As Elizabeth walks out, trying to process everything, she instinctively puts her hand in her pocket. A flash drive suddenly slips out of Elizabeth's clothes. It has a mysterious number written on it, and Elizabeth realizes that the nurse must have secretly placed it there. Confused but curious, she pockets the drive. As she steps outside, a man named Fred approaches her. He seems to know Elizabeth, showering her with compliments about her past work and handing her a piece of paper with his phone number on it. Later, Elizabeth returns home, her mind swirling with uncertainty. She plugs the flash drive into her computer, and a file named The Substance appears on the screen. As she clicks through, she discovers a shocking revelation. There's a serum that can create a younger, more beautiful version of oneself. A perfect version. Reminds me of the conspiracy theory that celebrities drink baby blood to stay young. However, there's a catch. Both versions of the person exist at the same time, but only one can be conscious at a time. The transformation cycles every 7 days, and to keep the new version alive and stable, the serum must be drawn from the spinal cord of the older version every day. Horrified, Elizabeth throws the flash drive aside, determined to forget about it. But as the hours pass, her desperation for youth and her fear of being replaced gnaw at her. Finally, she picks up the phone and calls the number Fred had given her. On the other end, the supplier briskly confirms her order, gives her an address, and abruptly hangs up. The next morning, Elizabeth's mood darkens further as she reads the newspaper. There, in black and white, she sees an announcement for auditions to find her replacement on the TV show. Her career is slipping away faster than she feared. Among the newspaper's pages, she finds an envelope from the mysterious supplier. Inside is a code for a locker. She heads to the address provided, a hidden location where rows of secure lockers are neatly arranged. Elizabeth finds hers and retrieves a small box. Back home, she carefully opens it. Inside is a serum injection, labeled for one-time use, along with a stabilizer kit, an essential tool for maintaining the younger version of herself. The kit includes tools to extract the serum from her older self, and another device to switch between the two versions. Along with these, she finds food supplies for both versions of her. Elizabeth stands before the bathroom mirror, gazing at her reflection. The lines on her face, the tiredness in her eyes, it all seems unbearable now. After a long moment of contemplation, she takes a deep breath and injects the serum into her body. For a few tense minutes, nothing seems to happen. But suddenly she feels a sharp pain as something begins to change inside her. Her waistline tightens and transforms, her skin smooths out, and her body starts reshaping itself. Elizabeth watches in astonishment as the process begins, a younger version of herself emerging. The new, younger version of Elizabeth, now calling herself Sue, emerges from the transformation. She marvels at her beauty, feeling a surge of confidence. After admiring her reflection, she quickly tends to her old version's body by stitching up the incision she had made earlier. She feeds her unconscious old self, taking careful steps to manage the two lives she now has to live. The next day, after Sue takes a bath, she suddenly experiences a nosebleed. Panicking, she rushes to extract the stabilizer serum from her old version's spinal cord. Once she injects the serum into herself, the bleeding stops, and she feels relief wash over her. With her health restored, Sue heads to the audition for the very TV show she was fired from. At the audition, Sue presents herself as a fresh new face, telling the producers her name is Sue and not Elizabeth. Her youthful energy and beauty capture the producers' attention, and she is selected for the show. Sue cleverly explains that she needs to leave town every week to take care of her sick mother, a cover story to explain the weekly switch between her two versions. The producer agrees, eager to have her on board, and soon Sue is set to be the star of the new show. The first week flies by, with Sue thriving in her new role. But as the 7th day approaches, the time for the switch draws near. Elizabeth, the older version, is due to wake up while Sue goes unconscious. Sue carefully prepares food for her old self, ensuring the new version's survival while she hibernates. Before switching back, Elizabeth receives another envelope from the mysterious supplier, along with her daily newspaper. Inside, there's a note saying that her refill kit has arrived at her locker. She retrieves it, ensuring that everything is in place for the next cycle. When Sue awakens the following week, she decides to take things to the next level. She breaks through the wall of her bathroom to create a hidden room, where she plans to hide her old self, Elizabeth, and keep her out of sight. As she works in the secret room, a neighbor hears the noise and comes over to complain. But when he sees Sue's stunning beauty, he's too mesmerized to argue. Instead, he offers to help her with anything she needs, and tells her to call him if she needs a hand. With her old version safely stashed in the new room, Sue removes all traces of Elizabeth from the house, even taking down her pictures. Sue then focuses on her TV show, where her performance is a hit, earning her newfound fame and admiration. As the week passes, Sue begins enjoying her glamorous new life. She makes new friends and starts going out frequently, losing herself in the excitement of her youth. One night, while she's out romancing a boy, she forgets to return home in time to feed her old version. Time ticks away, and soon it's time for the switch. But Sue, too distracted by her new life, rushes through the process and hurriedly injects the stabilizer serum into her old self, only barely managing to maintain control. When Elizabeth reawakens after the switch, she notices something alarming. One of her fingers is deformed. The switch hadn't happened on time, and as a result, the aging process affected her body. In a panic, Elizabeth calls the supplier, desperate for a solution. She explains that her new version, Sue, delayed the switch, causing her finger to deform. She pleads for help, asking if there's any way to reverse the damage. But the supplier coldly tells her that what's done cannot be undone. "You and Sue are the same," he says. "What happens to one, happens to the other. There's no going back now." Elizabeth, desperate to regain control of her life, retrieves a new refill kit and heads to a restaurant. There, she encounters an old man with the same hand mark as the nurse, who originally gave her the flash drive. The old man turns out to be the older version of the young boy from earlier. He warns her, cryptically asking if her new version, Sue, has started eating her yet. This comment leaves Elizabeth rattled. Back home, Elizabeth finds Fred's number, which she had kept from outside the hospital, and calls him, inviting him to meet her for drinks. However, just as she is about to leave to meet Fred, she sees a massive billboard of Sue, her younger self. Overcome with insecurity and doubt, Elizabeth cancels the meeting. Instead, she goes to the studio for the TV show's shoot, but something unsettling happens. She dreams of something foreign coming out of her body through her navel. When she awakens, She realizes it was just a nightmare. Sue had dreamt it before being activated for the day. Sue continues to thrive, and the producer offers her the chance to host a New Year's Eve special show. Sue is thrilled and agrees. However, the weekly body switch cycle continues. Sue repeatedly uses the stabilizer serum to stay active, far beyond the recommended time, while Elizabeth's health deteriorates rapidly. When Elizabeth is finally reactivated, her body has aged significantly, now nearly a frail old woman. Elizabeth's resentment towards Sue grows as her body withers. She covers her mirrors with newspapers, unable to bear the sight of her reflection or the reminders of Sue's beauty. Desperate, she calls the supplier, begging for a solution to regain her youth. The supplier coldly tells her there's no way to reverse the damage and the only option left is to stop the entire process. However, Elizabeth refuses to accept this fate. Things come to a head when Sue extracts stabilizer serum 3 months in advance. However, a month before the New Year's Eve special, her serum runs out. In a panic, Sue rushes to remove more serum from Elizabeth's body, but finds that nothing is coming out. As her nose starts bleeding and her health deteriorates, she frantically calls the supplier. He tells her that she's used up all the serum and must wait for a new batch to be made. He advises her to switch bodies and rest. Sue tries to switch but fails due to her overuse of the serum. Elizabeth, now fully activated, has transformed into a shockingly beautiful woman. When Sue's friend approaches the washroom, Elizabeth scares him off, shouting angrily. Determined to end this, Elizabeth retrieves the final kit from her locker, containing a termination serum that will kill her younger version, Sue, for good. At the crucial moment, as Elizabeth is about to inject the termination serum into Sue, she hesitates. The voice of the supplier echoes in her mind, warning her that if she does this, she'll be stuck in her current state forever. But Elizabeth is too angry to listen. She injects Sue, only stopping short of fully administering the serum. Despite everything, she still longs for the praise and attention that comes with youth. Frantic, she tries to wake Sue, but nothing works. Desperate, Elizabeth jabs a needle into Sue's heart and Sue awakens violently. However, when Sue realizes what Elizabeth has done, she lashes out in rage and kills Elizabeth. Sue then heads to the New Year's Eve special show, but as the night progresses, her health rapidly declines. She rushes to the washroom where her teeth begin to fall out, one by one. In a panic, she remembers the last bit of activation serum she had left at home. As she hurries to leave the studio, more parts of her body start to break down. Her nails and ear tear off, and her body collapses in the elevator. Back home, Sue applies the remaining activation serum, but this time, it has a horrifying effect. The serum was only meant to be used once, and the overdose creates a monstrous hybrid of Elizabeth and Sue. A creature with torn flesh and distorted features emerges from Sue's body. This hybrid gets dressed, pastes a mask of Elizabeth's face onto her own, and goes to the New Year's Eve special show. On stage, as the hybrid approaches the microphone, the mask falls off, revealing its deformed face to the audience. Horrified, people scream and call her a monster. In a panic, the hybrid tries to flee, but someone in the crowd hits her with a baseball bat, decapitating her in front of everyone. Blood pours from her regrowing body as the hybrid escapes the studio. The movie ends with the hybrid version of Elizabeth collapsing near her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Her distorted face gazes up at the sky as she smiles one last time, before melting into a pool of flesh. The next morning, a cleaner sweeps up the remnants, clearing Elizabeth's star and bringing her tragic story to an end. But this is not the end of your story, my friend. Click on the videos on the right next to continue enjoying interesting stories. Drop a like and subscribe for new recaps. I upload every other day. Grab your popcorn, enjoy yourself, and see you soon, my friend.